pigs, and we kept them in the house until they were able to go in the barnyard. And we raised them till they were pretty good size, and then, this man my dad knew, that come out and he butchered them. He had, after the pigs were growing.
These baby pigs that you raised in your house?
Yeah, in the wintertime. It was in the fall of the year. And with chickens you ordered through the mail. And at a certain time of the year, after you ordered those chickens from Sears catalog, because you had to learn how to do all that. My dad had to learn all this stuff. How to order, the lady that delivered the mail would pull in the driveway. You get this box.
A lady?
Our lady mailman. That was our, and then she had a car, and then certain times they would deliver the chickens. Chickens were in a box that had these little holes around it, baby chickens. And if it was getting cold that night, then we keep them in the house. We keep them behind the stove where it was nice and warm for baby chickens. And they were in a deep enough box. When you first get them, you get them put in something, but then after a while, we have to put them in the chicken house.
Yeah.
And there was a big barn, and then on one side was like a place where you could park your car or a truck, a pickup. And on this side was a chicken house. It was all made into one. And the chickens were on this side, and the chickens, they had chickens where they would roost in here and lay the eggs. And on this side there was a rack up on stilts that was where they would go at night and just rest. Sort of like what do you call it? A roost. They called it a chicken roost.
Yeah.
Where they would jump up there and they would all sit in a row like you see birds on a telephone line. Sometimes you'll see them all in a row. Well, this is what they would do that was a roost, was where they rested.
Oh.
Where they slept at night. And whenever you would hear us, we would be in the house and hear the squawking going on. That means something's not supposed to be there. That was either a possum or weasel. One of them would eat the eggs. The other one is a bloodsucker, and that was the weasel. And Mom would go out. One of us would go with Mom, and whoever's turn it was, or whoever was there. And that was whenever my dad was. Sometimes he had to work late. And that's what helps one of the neighbors, and that's what he was doing. Whenever that happened, then we would go out with Mom, and she would have the poker. It's like a big iron metal post that you use to stoke the fire on our stove, in our heating stove. She would grab that, and we would head out to the chicken house and open the door, and Mom got some pretty good, they call those possum, and she would whack it. And she would, if it was just, because if you shine, and I would hold the flashlight, or Rita, whoever it was, would hold the flashlight in this animal's eyes, because he couldn't see you. He couldn't see what to do then. And Mom would whack it over the back of the neck and break its neck. And then put it in a box after it was dead. And then Dad would take it to work the next day. And the man that rode with him in his truck, when he drove the truck for his job, would take it home, and his family knew just how to cook. His wife knew just how to cook that, and how to fix it. It would be like a pig sitting in the roasting pan. It was about this long.
Yeah.
And then
wow.
He would give it to Dad. And then Dad would say, you take half, I'll take half, and that's what they did. For them fixing it, for us furnishing the meat, that fed his family. And that was he worked with the black man. Dad would drive the truck, and his friend was the black man. And whenever they would get their checks, Dad would go to the bank and with him and help him get his check cashed. And then Dad, he couldn't write his own name, so Dad would he would sign the man's name like Ben or Harry or whatever his name was, or Mr. Black, and then the guy would put the X, and that means that's okay, you can cash it. And then he would cash it and give the man his money, his work pay from the bus company. So that's how that man got along, how he made a living for his family too. But the food would just start as a token of the dad working with him and them being friends. And then at lunchtime they would stop at the place and have a brain sandwich. You ever heard of a brain sandwich? This
Yeah.
was close to where Dad would pick up his truck and go to work. So that was some hard times then, because Dad a lot of times would have to, if they'd call him into work, he'd have, well, that's what he did. He drove a truck and he cleaned up the bus stops. There was bus stops with a bench.
Yeah.
And they would cut the grass there. They never had to clean buses or anything. Dad says he could never drive a bus because he couldn't put up with all those people. My dad had a temper, yeah. But he didn't show it to my mom at any time.
Yeah.
He never one time showed it to her.
With those pigs, what?
These were small. This guy worked at Cry Packing Company, and they would get a couple young pigs, and so they were young, and they were, I don't know how they kept, but we had to put them in the house for a while, keep them in the house for a while. They were young ones, and that's kind of what I remember. And then in a place where they would be warm, and then after the weather warmed up, then they would go in the pig pen, which the chicken house was raised this high up off of the floor, the side of the barn, and then down here, right there, next to the chicken house, was a big outside yard with a fence, a barbed wire fence around it, and that's where the pigs grew up. And you throw your garbage out, like we had a garden and all that, to where you could just throw your scraps out there. My grandpa stayed with us for a while too, my mom's dad. Help us
Grandpa Keeney.
Grandpa Keeney, yeah. And my dad's dad, I forgot what year he died in, but he died of Alzheimer's. My dad's father did. So that's
And then, so you raised the pigs, fed them, whatever, leftovers.
Yeah, let them get to size.
Was that always enough for the hogs to
Oh yeah.
feed on, or did you ever have to buy any Purina hog chow?
We had eggshells for the chickens to chew on. Yeah, we had raised chickens too. And Mom used to can those. Yeah, you would buy sacks of feed, and then you could mix it with the slop.
Yeah.
Slop, which was like milk, old milk, tomatoes, leftovers. And Mom had canned food too. We did the canning. We would help her do the canning. She had this big roaster thing that she would put the jars in to make sure they were sterile. Yeah, that's what we did. We hated to clean peaches. Peaches was the worst thing to peel, because you get all that fuzzy stuff on you from the peaches. That we had a peach tree. We had grapes, grape archer, a small grape archer. Peach tree was here, the grape archer was here. Here was our backyard, that farmhouse. Here were the propane tanks right underneath the kitchen window. And over here was a long area next to the end of the house. We had a garden. And that's when my grandpa would, he would help out in the summertime a lot. So he would be there after grandma died. He stayed with us for a while. And then he would help take care of the garden. And then he would take care of us, my older sister and I. And then when Marilyn came and Linda came, that was, Marilyn was born in 41. Linda was born in 45. So that was the war years, what we considered the war years in 45 when Linda was a baby. So when Grandpa stayed with us then, he would help us, trying to show us how to take care of a garden, how to get the worst, that was the worst thing we hated, was to weed the garden. Was to weed the garden. That was, cause we didn't like working in the hot sun. So we decided, well, one time we were supposed to be pulling the weeds on the garden, or hoeing, whatever, and that's what we did. We hoed the garden, and we're complaining. So we decided, Rita had to go to the bathroom. Okay, well, we had an outside bathroom that was two-holder.
Yeah.
And so she went down, and I was still holding her. Like I said, I hated working in the hot sun, and I know she did too. But she was a little bit harder headed, I guess, than I was, and she wanted to get the job done. So yeah, and she went down there. Had to go to the bathroom, but then all of a sudden I had to go too. So we went to the bathroom. Then whenever Grandpa said, "Where are you girls? We're in the John," or whatever we called it. "We're down here. Get out of there. You're killing time." Okay. So we come out, and then we got whacked on our behinds with the switch for killing time. The job had to be done, but he didn't really hurt us, because otherwise we'd have snitched. But anyway, that's what he was a farmer. That's what he knew to do to get the work out of your kid. But he would just hit us on our behinds. Mom with the switch, or he would. And then Mom was really get after us if we weren't paying attention. That was when Linda was little. Then when Grandpa went back to Jeff City, that's whenever we were growing up enough to go to Sunday school to learn how to do all these crafts. So.
Now what happened to those hogs? They
grew up, and then Dad knew a butcher that worked at Cry Packing Company, because they were right there by where the public service company where my dad worked. And Dad knew more people around there that would, sort of like your dad, that would help if you needed help with things like that. They knew somebody, because Grandma was always probably in the house working, that kind of stuff, doing stuff like most moms did in those days. Working at home was not considered a job. That was your job. That's what you did. And you didn't have to go out and make money unless at wartime. That was whenever a lot of the ladies went to work.
That's when Grandma worked in the
defense plant, they called it, yeah. A lot of I had a cousin that, my Uncle Brian, my mom's oldest brother. His daughter worked as a Rosie the Riveter. You heard what they did. They built airplanes.
Grandma was a Rosie the Riveter too.
Yeah.
She may not have been, right?
No, Rosie the Riveter, they had to live, Maxine lived in California, because that's where they built a lot of the planes, the airplanes.
Grandma was
and ships.
That's what Grandma did.
Yeah,
she worked in a defense plant.
Yes.
Not necessarily riveting anything.
Right, no.
Oh yeah, Grandma Meisinger.
Right, that's what
Rita Meisinger, who grew up on a farm.
Yeah.
She worked in a defense plant.
Right. That's right.
Making parachutes or whatever it was, we don't quite remember.
Right, parachutes.
And she may have, I don't think she even knew what she was building, because it was not something she ever was familiar with.
No, it was all new, and And they also made grenades, those kind of things, guns,
Sure.
clothes for the military. And soon as the war was over with, guess who got to go to college? The soldiers. The soldiers were the ones, and the women all went back home. And Maxine, and we used to wear a turban on her hair, because that's what she was crawling underneath airplanes and ships. A lot of them were doing building the ships, helped build the ships and that. But then the hard, I would think the hardest part would be to send your boyfriend or your husband off to war and have him not come back. That would be a tragedy, because women didn't do that. What they did was they could fly the airplanes. They would go, that was before they went into the waves or the wax. Later on they got to go into the waves or wax. But I don't know how many of those waves or wax got a free education. Or no, I don't know if you would I would call it free. But like the servicemen, the men that went to war.
Yeah, GI Bill.
Yeah, GI Bill. But I don't know how many women were able to do that. Maybe some of the nurses, I know, that were in some of that country, but I don't know. I really don't know that much about it.
Did you ever feel bad about those pigs? They'd come back in packages?
No. They didn't come back in packages. We kept it. What we give the guy that helped it did.
Right, they came in back in, I guess you had a refrigerator? Did you have an electric refrigerator?
Oh yeah, we had an electric refrigerator.
And so some of that meat you got.
Yeah, Mom would save the, like Grandma Lurk used to save the lard.
Yeah.
It had jars of, they showed you how, there was a way she knew how to do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then you'd give some to the neighbors that helped.
Sure.
Dad's best friend, one of the guys that we knew, there was there was farmers out there too. This one farmer helped out, doing the butchering like Lester did, and your dad did when he was younger. They helped everybody from the other farms around. Walter's farm, Pogue's, Mr. Pogue was a farmer. He helped out. Because we lived in this, and we learned from them at school. We knew who the guests were. We knew who the Joyce's, my friend Joyce. That's how we got to meet at school. Most of those people were farmers, and they worked in St. Louis. Worked around the area. Some were school teachers. I had a Girl Scout leader that was living out in that same area, and
Wow.
She was a school teacher too. And she had I'll never forget it. First we went on, and she took us she had a car with a rumble seat in the back. That's what she drove to school every day. She lived, I don't know where she lived, but she was our Girl Scout leader and school teacher. So she took us for a ride around the ball field at Washington School in the rumble seat. You see those in the old Fords. My grandpa had one. Grandpa had one of those when he was younger. My mom's dad, when he was living on the farm. So it was just been quite a lot, and a lot of it, like I said, I forgot. But the pigs, after they were butchered, that's what they did. We had dogs. We had a couple dogs, but we had to keep those because we lived so close to the highway that we had to keep them chained up, and we kept them. We had a big back porch where the washing machine was, and the basement door, the cellar door, where you opened it up. That's where we kept all the canned goods. You could go down underneath if it had a big dirt floor, and this cellar door where you walk down 3 steps, and you keep potatoes down there, like Lester, I don't know if you remember Lester and Leanne.
Oh,
had
sure.
that. Yeah, something similar to that, yeah. And you walk down there and you had a bin where the potatoes were. And then there's shelves over here, they were made out of an old pair of some old steps. About this wide. That's where we kept the canned goods, cause it's like steps, they were like steps too, but that's where you kept the canned goods. And then on that shelf. On those shelves. So yeah, that was pretty interesting.
I remember the house when we would drive by it and point up at it, the farmhouse.
Yeah.
Did that have a front porch that,
Yes.
like a decorative kind of, or a
It was-
nice front
yeah,
porch
it
that
had-
faced the road?
Yeah, faced the road, and right below that was where the mailbox was. And when the mail lady would come by, she would just pull up there, put the mail in the box, unless there was a special delivery, like chickens. Then she would come up the driveway, and then you'd go out and pick up the chickens from her. You ordered them, you knew where they were gonna be brought in the mail, and she would hand deliver, like a delivery person does now. Like if you get anything from, any of the delivery,
Yeah.
people order something, then it would come, just like that. Oh, she would be the one that did it. We had newspapers too.
Was that? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we had newspapers delivered. It was thrown into the driveway.
Was that like where Grandpa parked his vehicles, or did he park them in the back?
Grandpa did, Grandpa Mice.
Oh, my grandpa, your dad.
Okay, yeah, he would park in the driveway. You come up from there was the highway, and Dad when he would come home from work, he would pull in the driveway, and there's this little slope that went up like that, and then he would be in the driveway. It was a pretty big yard, and the chickens would run around, at the end of the chickens, for some reason, never got down onto the highway, cause they could have run onto the highway, but they never. They roamed free. They were, as soon as you open up the door to the barn, the chickens could run out. And that run out and eat the worms or whatever they found out there, and then they knew when to go back into that shed, into the chicken house at nighttime. When the dark would come, the chickens would go back into the house, and then they had little pans of food in there. They all had a little nest, the females all had a nest where they laid the eggs. It was a long life, strange one.
Did you sell the eggs, or were they all used to feed?
They were mostly used, and then we didn't sell eggs. I don't know how I imagine we did. I really don't know. They did. Probably enough relatives that would, I don't remember what we did.
Then every now and then.
Mom would can chickens, I know that, cause she would can chickens for the winter time. She would cook the meat and then make soup or broth out of them, like you could buy in the store. You could buy the chicken broth to make whatever you want to make with them. You've cooked turkeys on cooked bones in that.
Yeah.
That's what you would use to kind of flavor you would use the chicken bones to flavor the broth. And then you take out all that stuff, kind of strain it out, and then she would make jars of broth, and then she would use the meat and put chicken in a jar. Does that make a good soup out of it, or whatever you wanted to use it for? But you had to really be careful that you scalded those jars and make sure those jars were good and clean. Because you didn't want one speck of dirt, because otherwise you would hear an explosion in the basement, because either the jar wasn't clean or it wasn't sealed properly. And sometimes you would hear tomatoes blow up. If you were on the porch, standing on the porch in the back of the house, you would hear poof, My dad even canned beer. He even made beer. Mom didn't like that part too well, though, so, that's the difference between the churches. You didn't always have, you didn't really always have wine to drink at the Baptist church unless you were baptized Baptist. I was never baptized a Baptist. But my, Rita was, because they asked you if you want to come up. I think you've probably seen that at the Baptist church where they were doing that. They were, have the kids come up, they come to God, they call it. I never would do that, but Rita did. Who else? Marilyn never. I don't remember Linda either doing that. None of us, but Rita was the one that, she was old enough to realize what was going on, what they were teaching us. And I wasn't about to go, because I didn't know what I was doing. And then she was baptized in the Baptist church. That's where they dunk you under the water.
Yeah.
Like you get baptized in the Catholic church. It's a little bit different. You're there as a baby. And you get the water poured on your head. We never did that at any time. I didn't have to do that after I married your dad either.
Wow.
Yeah, I never had to be baptized that way, so it's just what you guys did. You were all baptized. You and Matt were baptized that way, into the Catholic church that way.
As babies.
Yeah, as babies.
Yeah.
And then